Imagine if your paycheck wasn't money, but points you could cash in for things you actually want, like a trip, some extra time off, maybe your favorite meal. Well, this simple idea is the foundation of a really powerful behavioral tool called the token economy. It's used everywhere, from classrooms to clinics. So let's break down the blueprint for how it's supposed to work.
All right, first things first, let's get on the same page. What exactly is a token economy? And, what's the simple loop that makes the whole thing tick? At its heart, a token economy is basically a system that uses tokens, things like points or stickers or even poker chips, as a kind of stand-in for a much bigger reward. The whole point, really, is to bridge that time gap between doing something positive and getting the reward for it. It makes that reinforcement feel immediate, even when the real prize has to wait.
So the entire system pretty much boils down to this simple three-step loop. Okay, step one. The person does the specific thing we're looking for. Let's say a student quietly raises their hand. Step two, they immediately get a token. And that immediacy, that's absolutely crucial. Then, step three. Later on, they can trade in that token, or a whole bunch of them, for something they actually want, like maybe some extra time on the playground. Simple, right?
Okay, so that's the basic concept. But to really make this system work effectively, there's a very specific research-backed blueprint you're supposed to follow. So let's take a look at how you build the by-the-book version of a token economy.
Yeah, this isn't just guesswork. There's a clear 6-step roadmap from applied behavior analysis. You start by defining the exact behavior, then you pick your tokens, you create a whole menu of prizes, you set the price for everything, decide how often tokens are earned, and then, and only then, do you test it out. It's meant to be a very deliberate, thoughtful process.
And, the token itself is actually more complicated than you'd think. It has to be practical. It's got to be safe, durable, and always on hand for that immediate delivery. Research even shows that making the tokens personal, like putting a favorite cartoon character on them, can make them way more motivating and the whole system more effective. Pretty cool.
All right, so we've got the perfect blueprint. We have a clear definition, a simple loop, a 6-step plan. Everything looks great on paper. But what happens when this clean, neat theory smacks into the messy, complicated real world?
And this really is the central question, isn't it? Are the folks out there in the field, the practitioners, the teachers, the therapists, are they actually following these evidence-based steps? Well, according to a major 2023 survey, the answer is a big not really. This quote from the study is just stunning. It suggests there's this huge disconnect between the blueprints and what's actually. So let's dig into the evidence from that survey of 255 practitioners. Where exactly are things going off script from the ideal model? Okay, first, we need to get a handle on a technical but really critical difference here. In a true token schedule, earning more tokens means you get more of the final reward. So 5 tokens gets you 5 minutes of iPad time, but 10 tokens gets you 10 minutes. Makes sense. But in a chain schedule, you just have to hit a target. Let's say 5 tokens to unlock a fixed reward. It doesn't matter if you earn more. Now, remember that distinction we just made. Here's why it is so important. Look at this number. The survey found that nearly half, almost 50% of practitioners are using a system that's really more like a chain schedule. This means they are not using the true token schedule that research suggests is actually more powerful. That's a fundamental difference in how the whole economy is being run. And get this, here's another huge finding. How do you even know if the tokens themselves are motivating? Well, you have to test them, right? And yet, almost 60% of practitioners said they don't do a formal assessment to make sure the tokens are actually working. That's like building the whole system without ever checking if the money has any value. So what are people even earning with their tokens? Well, over 76% of the time, the big prize is a break from instruction. Now, the researchers pointed out this can be kind of problematic. Instead of a real economy where you're earning cool things, the system can accidentally turn into just a progress bar that signals when you can finally escape from doing work. So we're seeing these gaps pop up everywhere, in the schedules, the assessments, the rewards. But why? Do these seemingly small details matter so much? What's the big deal? Well, they matter because each one of these gaps can undermine the entire system. When you don't follow the blueprint, the whole thing can just be less effective. If you haven't tested your tokens, how on earth do you fix the system when it breaks? You're basically flying blind. And, like we just saw, you risk teaching people to work just to escape, not to earn. Ultimately, all of this points to a real need for better training and more standardized practices out in the field. Which really leaves us with this final thought. The research gives us an incredibly powerful blueprint for changing behavior, for sure. But as this survey shows, a blueprint is only as good as the person reading it. The real power, and honestly the real challenge, lies in the hands of the builder.